There is a silent epidemic ravaging our community, and I'm not talking about COVID-19. I'm referring to NCDs, non-communicable diseases. These are chronic, life-altering diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Unlike contagious diseases, these are not contracted through contact with others, but develop over time due to various risk factors. Alarmingly, NCDs now account for around 60% of all deaths on Guam. And it wasn't always like this. Before the 1950s, non-communicable diseases were relatively low among the people of Guam, as evidenced by U.S. health surveys. From 1910 to 1950, deaths from diabetes were almost non-existent, suggesting that the disease was not prevalent among the population at the time. However, beginning in the 1960s, the rate of diabetes-related deaths, along with other NCDs, dramatically increased, leading to the situation we face today where NCDs account for around 60% of all deaths on Guam. So what caused this shift? How did Guam go, for example, from virtually no diabetes-related deaths before the 1950s to having it as one of the leading cause of death today? Puti'on. And in this video, we will explore the reasons behind the NCD epidemic on Guam. The high levels of NCDs today, driven by poor diets and sedentary lifestyles, are deeply connected to the rapid modernization of Guam after World War II, compounded by the wartime destruction of land, widespread land seizures, and the introduction of canned foods by the Americans. Before the war, the average diet for the people of Guam, who were mostly Chamorro at the time, primarily consisted of local plant-based foods such as breadfruits, taro, yams, and bananas, supplemented by fish and red meat from domesticated animals like pigs. This diet was relatively healthy, and Chamorros lived a subsistence agricultural lifestyle where most of the day was spent producing and obtaining food. Combined with the community-focused lifestyle and limited access to motor vehicles, meant that the average Chamorro got plenty of exercise. This active lifestyle and healthy diet likely contributed to the low rates of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and stroke during that time. However, this healthy way of life changed drastically due to the war and post-war modernization. The Japanese occupation of Guam was a traumatic period, with many Chamorros suffering from hunger and malnutrition, especially by the time the Americans invaded on July 21, 1944. After the war, Chamorros were supplied with large amounts of canned foods like Spam by the Americans. Spam, a cheap, long-lasting canned food, became a staple in the Chamorro diet due to the availability and ease of storage. Furthermore, the wartime destruction of the land made fresh food scarce, forcing many Chamorros to turn to Spam as a major food source. It may be said that Chamorros embraced Spam as a symbol of patriotism and a reminder of America's liberation of Guam. However, as we know today, highly processed foods like Spam are unhealthy and linked to NCDs. The Chamorro high consumption of highly processed foods like Spam would eventually have disastrous consequences. Post-war modernization brought rapid social, economic, and cultural changes to Guam. The island transitioned from a subsistence agricultural society to a cash economy with a more sedentary lifestyle. Many Chamorros whose properties were destroyed during the war or seized by the military had little choice but to participate in the new economic system as wage workers. This shift led to a decrease in physical activity as people no longer engaged in the same level of manual labor as they once did in farming. The widespread availability of cars further reduced physical activity, contributing to weight gain and the rise of obesity, a major risk factor for NCDs. The health crisis was exacerbated as Chamorros developed a taste for highly processed meats and other unhealthy foods post-war. Although local plant-based foods like breadfruit and taro continued to be consumed, there was a growing preference for the highly processed foods, even though the island had already recovered from the war. This shift to a nutritional imbalanced diet combined with a more sedentary lifestyle led to poor overall health among the Chamorro and non-Chamorro populations. Additionally, toxic chemicals and contaminants intentionally dumped or accidentally leaked by the U.S. military on Guam may have further contributed to the rise in NCDs, particularly cancer. Similarly, pollution and toxic dumping from civilian sources may also contribute to the rise of NCDs. These consequences of modernization, the adoption of an unhealthy diet and a sedentary lifestyle, have led to a significant rise in overweight and obesity rates, non-communicable diseases, and related deaths among the people of Guam. The evidence is clear. Since the onset of Guam's modernization in the 1950s and 1960s, deaths related to diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and strokes have generally increased, with all reaching their peaks in 2010. Unfortunately, the rates of NCDs are unlikely to decrease anytime soon. A 2020 study by Leon Guerrero and colleagues found that in 2013, 27.4% of Guam's children aged 2 to 8 were either overweight or obese. Additionally, 58.7% did not consume the recommended amount of fruits, and a staggering 99.1% did not meet the recommended vegetable intake. Moreover, 73.7% drank sugar-sweetened beverages, and 83.1% exceeded the recommended screen time. Similarly, a 2020 study by Nazareno and colleagues found that among University of Guam students in 2015, 54.5% were physically inactive, 77.5% had infrequent fruit intake, 68% had infrequent vegetable intake, and 31.5% frequently consumed fast food. Additionally, 22.6% of these young adults were obese. Concerning the weight of the broader adult population of Guam, in 2003, 36.2% were overweight and 21.9% were obese. By 2014, obesity had increased to 28%, and by 2020, it had risen further to 34.4%. The trends are alarming, and without significant changes in diet and lifestyle, the burden of NCDs on Guam is likely to continue growing. In conclusion, the sharp rise in non-communicable diseases on Guam is a stark reminder of the profound impact that rapid modernization and cultural shifts can have on public health. What was once an island community thriving on a healthy, active lifestyle and a diet rich in local plant-based foods has transitioned into one grappling with the consequences of processed foods, sedentary habits, and environmental toxins. This shift has led to alarming rates of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and stroke. Furthermore, the disturbing statistics on obesity, poor diet, and physical inactivity among both children and adults serves as a wake-up call that immediate action is necessary to curb these trends. As we look to the future, it's crucial to re-examine traditional ways of living and food sources that sustain the indigenous Chamorro people, as these practices could benefit everyone who calls Guam home. We must also address the modern challenges that have contributed to the current health crisis. Only by acknowledging the complex history that brought us to this point can we begin to reverse the damage. Prioritizing the well-being of our people, particularly the younger generation, is essential to reversing these troubling trends and ensuring a healthier future for Guam. If you liked and enjoyed the video, consider supporting me on Patreon so I can continue to produce more Pacific Studies content. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, follow me on social media at PulanSpeaks. And a special Seduce Masi to Patreon supporters Puti'on, Dylan Sablan, and Jesse Babauta. Seduce Masi for watching, Guahusi Pulan, and Pulan has spoken. Esta.